The nightmare property. Lessons learned from a real estate investor. Property number 2. My second duplex I bought in a Midwest market in 2017, and this video might be a little longer than the previous one, only because there were so many more lessons learned from this one than the last. Anything that could go wrong with a property did go wrong with this one, and I hope that this will be of benefit to you. Maybe you'll learn something so that you don't have to suffer the same pain that I did going through all these things with this property. So I'll just read these lessons to you. Number 1 would be to hire your own inspector. You never know what personal relationships real estate professionals have, what incentives there are to ensure that a property goes through inspections so that the property sells, and that this profitable relationship can sustain and perpetuate itself. So they may intentionally or unintentionally miss things inspecting the house to make sure that the property sells. So I just say that it's best to find your own inspector and make sure that they are as an objective third party as possible. Number 2, ensuring that your manager is located within half an hour of your property. My manager, who was actually my agent, he offered his services to be a manager for me. He was based 2 hours away, and he never told me this. I thought he had a garage or an office there in the city that I was in, but he was based in another city, and he was 2 hours away. So the maintenance crew only made it down maybe twice a month to my property. So it fell into neglect pretty quickly. I was getting calls from the tenants. They were really upset that things weren't getting fixed, and it was just a bunch of headache. So I'd say make sure that your property manager is located really close to your property. Number 3 would be to communicate expectations and responsibilities with your management. My upstairs tenant in the duplex was a Section 8 tenant, so she was on a housing voucher through the housing authority, getting her unit subsidized. And I assumed wrongly that my manager would do all of the administrative work with the housing authority, and I never got paid for 5 months from the housing authority. I never got paid rent, and I went back and forth with the housing authority, just asking where's the rent, why isn't it coming in, and just going round and round for months and months between the housing authority and my manager. And eventually my manager asked, he's like, well, didn't you ever file a change of ownership form with the housing authority? And I told him that I thought that was his responsibility as my manager to manage the property and all the administrative aspects of the property, and he didn't think that was his responsibility. So it all came down to the change of ownership document that was never filed. So I terminated that relationship within about 24 hours of that conversation. So communicating expectations and responsibilities with your management is critical. The next lesson would be to choose a manager with experience. My next manager for that property, she didn't have a whole lot of experience, so I gave her a chance. Like, oh, she needs an opportunity. I'll give her a chance. Still, it was the nice guy in me. Still trying to be nice. As I talked about in my last video, I was always a really nice, charitable person, and I learned real quick that you can't do that in business all the time. But I hired her anyhow, and the upstairs unit was vacant. The Section 8 tenant had moved out, and we got the unit cleaned. This was in 2018, and it was that December when a massive cold front went through the Midwest and just destroyed a lot of properties. Pipes burst, including mine. She turned the temperature down in the unit since it was vacant. She didn't see the need to heat it since it was vacant, and she turned the temperature down on the thermostat, didn't leave the water dripping, and 3 pipes burst, destroying drywall and flooring. It cost, well, the estimate was $50,000 from a contractor, and I didn't have any resources. I had already spent a lot of my money on some other issues with the house previously. So I didn't have deep enough pockets, like I talked about in my last video. I was spent out, didn't have the resources. Oh, and my insurance denied the claim because the provision in the rental policy says that any unit vacant for 30 days is not covered. It's considered an unoccupied unit, and it's not covered under the insurance policy. So they denied my claim, and so I was 50 grand short of a repair. It was just massive damage, and so I let go of that manager, also terminated that relationship. I didn't sue her for neglect or malfeasance, which I thought was pretty generous of me again. So make sure that you have a manager with plenty of experience, that all of these things are just second nature to them. They can see into the future. They can predict what's going to happen at every time of the year, all of the circumstances, all the environmental changes, weather, stuff like that. Just, they have to be aware, they have to know what's going to happen so they can get ahead of these things. So number 5 would be to not panic like I did. And if you're prone to anxiety or panicking, I would encourage you to stop, breathe, and think if any problems arise, and lean on your resources. Just going back to that whole resourcefulness philosophy, have a deep bench of contractors and vendors, real estate professionals, managers on hand. Be resourceful. The next one would be to not sell to wholesalers like I did, because if you sell to wholesalers, you give them all the power and you have none. Now you can buy from wholesalers because you'll be in a position of power, but never sell to wholesalers. I panicked. I didn't have the resourcefulness that I now have, and I sold. I just felt like I needed to get rid of the property as quickly as possible. So I sold to some wholesalers whose job is to buy your property for as little as possible and resell it to an end buyer for their profit. And what they do is they have you deed over the property. So I deeded the property over to them, and they reassigned it through the county to this new buyer. So he effectively owned the property, but I still held the note to it. I still had the loan under my name. So I was still on the hook with the bank for the loan, but the other man now owned the property. And this is what wholesaling does. It leaves you on the hook for the money while the new owner has the benefit of reaping the profits from the property. And there is a provision in this contract that you sign with the wholesaler that the end buyer will fulfill their obligations to the loan by paying the loan. So they'll pay it, but this buyer didn't. He was late on something like 12 payments over about a year and a half, and it destroyed my credit because that hit the bank, and it showed that I was late because it's my loan, my credit. But he was late paying it, so it hit my credit, destroyed my credit, went from the mid sevens all the way down to the low fives. It was one of the worst experiences financially of my life. I eventually had to sue and file a lawsuit. I was able to get the property back in my name, and then I resold it to him at arm's length, which again I think was pretty generous of me. But I just was exhausted at that point, and I wanted to be rid of the property, and I just wanted to be rid of it, so I sold it back to him, and we settled up that way. So that whole story is just to say, don't sell to wholesalers. You have no control once you reassign it to someone else, and they can destroy you. They can destroy your credit. So don't do that. The next one is talking with your lender about forbearance plans if anything happens. The lender is willing to work with you. They don't want to be a landlord. They don't want to lose money on it. They will work with you. It's in their best interest. So don't be afraid to talk with your lender about what's going on if you're in trouble, and just being resourceful, right? Just having conversations with people who are on your team, who are your lender, your manager. You have to kind of see them as resources. So that dovetails into the last one, which is just going back to resourcefulness, which is the overall lesson that I learned from this second property. Just stopping, breathing, thinking, looking at all of your options, and not jumping the gun on anything. But that was a really difficult property. I owned it for about 4.5 years. I eventually sold it, and even though it was a really difficult a season of life, I definitely became a better owner and landlord because of it. I'm much sharper now. I can predict things. So hopefully that helps you just to anticipate problems that might happen, and that'll equip you to be a better real estate investor yourself. And hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you in the next video.